G'day everyone. There is a huge number of different types of yabby nets available today. But here in Southeast Australia, there's three most common yabby nets. And in this video, I'm going to be discussing those three most common yabby nets, which ones I think are better, what situations I think they're best in, and I'm going to be asking a question that I get asked all the time, and that is, do I think that the open top lift nets are as good as the old Opera House nets? Right, now if you see me waving my arms around like this all the time, it's not because there's cars driving past and I'm just saying hello. It's because the flies are driving me mad. For some reason it's been a particularly bad year. Now, there's three main types of yabby nets that we use here in my area, which is Northeast Victoria or Southeast Australia in general. There's the open top lift nets, there's drop nets, and there is collapsible bait traps. Now let's start with the drop nets. This is a drop net. Some people call it a hoop net. I call it a drop net because you drop it in and it sits flat, then you lift it up and the yabbies are trapped. Now these type of nets are designed to be used over short periods of time. You tie your bait into the bottom, you throw it in and it sits flat, making it easy for the yabbies to come along and walk in and get to the bait. And then when you check the net, the yabbies are trapped. These are ideal for short soaks in the water or short periods of time. You can check them every 10 to 15 minutes. Some dams when the yabbying's really slow, you might want to leave them in longer. And in some dams when the yabbying's red hot, you might get away with checking them every 5 minutes. But on average, 10 to 15 minutes is a pretty good number. These are easy to use. These are the nets that I like the most when I'm actively yabbying, which means I'm sitting on the bank of the dam. I might have the kids with me or I could be on my own. And I just want to just continually walk around the nets every quarter of an hour. These are the best by a mile for that, because there's a bit of a saying with yabbying, easy in, easy out. If you leave them in too long, the yabbies will just walk straight back out. So you want to catch them while they're in there. Easy in, easy out. The easier they can get in, the less you have to leave them in for. Now let's move to the open top lift nets. These have risen a lot in popularity since the Opera House nets were banned. Now it's why I'm talking about these that I'm going to discuss which ones I think are better between these and the Opera House nets. Open top lift nets, they're not overly hard for the yabbies to get in. They climb up, they walk in, and therefore you don't have to leave them in for hours on end. I've caught plenty of yabbies just soaking these for 15 minutes at a time. I find around about an hour to be a really good time to soak these nets. Once again though, easy in, easy out. I believe that the yabbies can get in easy, and I think that they can get out easy. And something that you've really got to be cautious of with these nets is if you've got bait that floats. For example, I use dog food in these ones, a heap of dog food in a stocking, and it floated. Fatty meats like chops and stuff can float. What will happen, the meat will float up a little bit like that and just lift the bottom of the net up, and that will create just a couple of inches between the bait and the top of the nets, making it easy for the yabbies to get out. I believe the yabbies can get out of here. I think it's a lot harder for them to get out than it is the drop nets, but I think that they can get out, and I think that they do work their way out in time. And also, other things that like to eat yabbies, like platypus or turtles, the things that we are saving by banning the Opera House nets, they can get into here and they can raid your yabbies. So I don't think they're good for long soaks, but I think they're very good nets. Now, do I think that these are as good as the old Opera House nets? Well, I think they're every bit as good, but in a different way. The Opera House nets, the beauty about them is you could leave them in all night and come back tomorrow, and just about every yabby that made its way in was trapped in. It couldn't get out. Whereas with these, they've got a chance of getting out. So they definitely don't retain yabbies as well as the Opera House nets. I like these when I'm putting them in just for an hour or two. I might go fishing for a couple of hours. I might drop this in the dam, check it on the way out. I find they're really good in those situations. But as far as long overnight soaks, no, I don't even think they come close to the Opera House nets. I think the Opera House nets were king in that little area. They were great for leaving in for long soaks. I don't think these are. But I do really like them. I like the fact that they're strong and robust. And when you throw them, it's easy for them to land flat down on the bottom, unlike the drop nets. But I do really like these. And I must say, even though I don't think they're as good at catching yabbies in the long soaks as what the Opera House nets were, I fully support the program that banned the Opera House nets and saw them For those that aren't aware, there was a swap over program where you could take your Opera House nets in and swap them over for an open top lift net. And that's how I got mine. And I fully support that program because when we were allowed to use Opera House nets, the law was that we could use them on private property away from public water courses, away from rivers and creeks and stuff. And that would be fine if everybody stuck to that. But unfortunately, a lot of people didn't. And they were turning up in rivers and creeks where platypus and turtles live. And the native wildlife, like the platypus and the turtle, were getting trapped inside the Opera House nets and dying. In fact, on cod opening this last week, Brett Corker and I found an Opera House net in a local waterway. It hadn't been used for a long time, but it was there. So there you go, folks. I'm out here on the river fishing with Brett from Murray Cod, and here's an old Opera House net, remnants of the past. This is why they were banned. They were meant to be used only in private dams away from flowing watercourses, and people didn't abide by those rules. They put them into these waterways and they caught platypus, so they've been banned as a result. So if everybody knew to stick to the law and stay in the private dams, I'd be annoyed with the fact that they've been banned. But I know, because I've seen it firsthand, that they were being left in public waterways a lot and catching platypuses, so I support the ban a lot. And just because these aren't as good overnight as the Opera House nets, it doesn't mean it's all bad, because let's move on to the third net. This is a collapsible bait trap. I use these in times where I used to use the Opera House nets. They're not as effective as the Opera House nets, but they do retain a lot of yabbies. I caught 36 yabbies in one of these just recently, and even though the hole's 5 centimetres in diameter, you can still get quite a big yabby in a 5 centimetre hole. Like, these are the nets that I use for the long soaks, for the overnight soaks, or the couple of day soaks. In fact, in August, I put one of these in a local dam that I go yabbying in, and I called it my night watchman. And I'd go and check it every few days and to see whether I was getting any yabbies. And I was getting one or two here and there. And when I started getting a few more, that's when I knew the yabbies were starting to bite. The night watchman. So I like these for the long. I think since the Opera House nets were banned, for me personally, these have replaced them more than what the open top lift nets or pyramid nets have. I prefer these. So we've still got an option to use for longer soaks. Somebody asked me in the comment section last week, are we allowed to use these for yabbies? Absolutely we are. If you read the Victorian Fisheries, I'm speaking from a Victorian perspective too, by the way, folks, but if you read the Victorian Fisheries rulebook, you can definitely use these. They are subject to sizes. There's got to be a certain width, a certain height, a certain depth, and the diameter of the funnel has got to be a certain diameter. It can't be any bigger, once again, to prevent platypus and other things getting in. So folks, they're the three main nets. Now, I use them all. I like them all. I really like the open top lift nets when I'm targeting big yabbies for a feed, but because the mesh is a bit bigger, I find they're not great for targeting bait size yabbies, which is when I like to use these. Now, another question that I get asked, what's my favourite type? Absolutely, it's this one. And I'll tell you why, for a number of reasons. One, because they're called collapsible for a reason. They collapse into a tiny little package that you could put in a backpack. You see that? That is how small they fold down to. So I really like that. They're light, so they're small and lightweight. You can buy them for about $5. They're not expensive. But the thing I like most about them is that they've got the pouch at the top for bait. In a recent video, I put some tartare sauce sachets in there. I've had tins of cat food in there and tuna. I've put dog food in there, which is my favourite bait. You can put the dog food in, you can zip it up. It's hard to tie goodos into the bottom of a yabby net. You need a pouch. So these are my favourites, but they all work very, very well. I think the open top lift nets are a great net. That's a fantastic initiative to replace the Opera House nets. They don't work as long for the long soaks, but they are really good if you just want to leave them in. I find about an hour. Let's talk about times. These ones, I like to give around about an hour. Sometimes I'll check them every 15 minutes. A lot, I check them every 15 minutes, and they still work. But an hour, I find an hour to be the optimal time for the open top lift nets. The drop nets, as I said before, 10 to 15 minutes is usually really good for these. And these guys here, well, these are the long haul nets. So you leave them in for the long haul, anywhere from, half an hour to a week if you wanted to. Rightio, folks. I hope that answers the question of which nets do I find best, and also the question of do I think that the open top lift nets are as good as the Opera House nets. Once again, I fully support the banning of Opera House nets just because I've seen the negative impacts they have on the environment. I hope these videos helped you out. Thanks very much for watching. If you've liked this video and found it informative, give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and hopefully I'll see you on my next fishing or yabbying adventure.